Good evening and welcome to the happenings in Medfield. And as you may know, I have the opportunity of sitting here at the anchor desk with Mike Sullivan, the town administrator. And we discuss the happenings in Medfield, what's happened and what's coming up. And so, without further ado, but one thing I do want to say, welcome back, Mike.
Thank you, Jack. It was nice being away, but nice to come back. Well, they say there's nothing like sleeping in your own bed. So.
I readily agree. People have been wondering, and I have too sometimes as I drive by, what's the situation at Cumberland Farms?
Well, as I understand it, they thought they had solved the problem. You recall when they had environmental cleanup crews in there, so probably about 9 months ago, and they thought they had found it, but they had solved it, but apparently the air quality, there was of fumes, gasoline fumes. So when they went back and looked at it again, they found that there was a leak in one of the lines. So they're shutting the Cumberland Farms down for 5 weeks, and they're removing the tanks. They have a big crane in there to help them lift the tanks, and I guess they have to do quite an extensive repair job to get it back in order. Then I wouldn't be surprised if there was oil leaking into the ground, that there'll probably be some ongoing measure to get that out of the soil. Unless they excavate the soil while they're doing this work, they may well do that too. That's another option available to them. But they have finally found the source of the problem and are addressing it. So it's a major renovation and replacement of the tank. So.
Well, as you said earlier, and I readily agree, that's going to be pretty expensive to get all that.
Yes, it'd be quite expensive, but those things have to be done when you come across a problem like that. There's
better believe it.
You have no choice. You must spend the money.
Readily understandable. Let's move on to 40B.
Yes, people keep saying, well, what's happening on West Street? What's happening with the 40B? Well, they're starting just right around the beginning of November. They're going to start construction. I understand they've already put a silt fence in down there, and that they are starting around October 30th to prepare the site for construction. So those buildings go up pretty quickly. I know they have a site that they built, or development they built down in Raynham along 495 called Chestnut Farm, and I remember when that was under construction, those buildings went up in no time. They really put them up very quickly. So I would think depending on how severe the winter weather is, they will probably have some of those buildings complete by next summer. So I imagine there will be some impact on the schools depending on how quickly they rent out the apartments there for the next school year, I would think, yeah. So.
Well, the town garage was quite an affair.
Yes, I'm sorry I missed it. I was down visiting family in Virginia for a few days, and unfortunately the event was scheduled after I had made my arrangements to go down and see the family. And but I heard it went very well. They did a nice job with it, and I'm glad people have got the opportunity to see what the town spent its money on. I think it came out very nicely, came in under budget, which we're very happy about. And it certainly provides a great space for those guys to work out of.
Well, and it was well received. It's a beautiful building.
It really is,
Yeah, and they were very happy with it.
I said to Ken Feeney, the superintendent of Public Works, I said, you better be prepared to give a lot of tours. I'm sure all the Public Works directors in the area will want to come over and take a look at it. Probably a lot of building committees will want to see what's done. But I know I was talking to a selectman from one of the surrounding towns who was also looking into rebuilding a town garage, and they said they couldn't afford to put the block in the building. And I said, well, our building committee took a look at it, and they felt for the long run it would be a much better solution cost-wise to use that. You get less corrosion and less damage from weatherization and wear and tear. And he said, well, we had to keep our budget under 12 million, so we couldn't afford to do that. I said, well, we did it for just a little over 10 million when everything is said and done. And I said, well, the difference was our DPW crew was able to do a lot of the site work. And he said, well, you're lucky that you're able to do that because our DPW crews couldn't do any of that site work. So I hope people appreciate that the Public Works Department did save a considerable amount of money in construction costs on that building. Of course, they should. It's going to be their home, so I'm sure they took a particular interest in that project. But it's typical of what they do. You know, we think of DPW just in terms of roads and streets and sidewalks, but they've built the bleachers at the high school football field. They built the fields at McCarthy Park. Mm-hmm. They closed the old landfill. They've rebuilt several of the bridges in town. And as I said, they've done the site work, a lot of the site work on Town Garage. And people were skeptical when you say DPW can do that. They look at you like, no, we need somebody in there that knows what they're doing. Well, once they get in there and see what these guys can do, they're quite pleased with it. And
I would certainly think so.
And I'd like to particularly thank the building committee for all the work they put in and getting that project first approved by town meeting and then overseeing it so that it did come in under budget. They were very helpful. And it's the only committee meeting I've been to where they held them at 6:30 in the morning. So,
that's early.
Yes, they most of the people, several of the people work out of town, and they like to have meetings early in the day so they didn't have to come to an evening meeting when they got home. So worked out fine. They did, even that's a little bit early. They moved them back to 7 a.m. now. So
that's better at 7.
Yes, yeah. And now they're working on the public safety building design. They're hoping to. They've asked us to have the design. The design is pretty well complete by now. They're preparing construction documents and drawings, and they're hoping to put it out to bid so that they will have a price, probably in January or early February, so they will have a price for the town meeting. They've asked the selectmen to call a special town meeting about a week before the annual election, so that it will, of course, require an override, Proposition 2.5 override vote. So they would like to put that override vote on the annual ballot so they don't have to have a special election.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does. And also, when you open bids, the bids are only good for a short period of time, 35 or 65 days, I think it is. So you need to be able to act quickly to award the bids once you open them. The other advantage is that when they go to town meeting, they will have a pretty solid price because they will have the bid opening in hand by then. So they'll have a much better idea, and they're hoping if the bids come in low, they can reduce the bond authorization requested. So.
Good. The water tower.
Yes, the water tower. It seems like we finish one project and we start another. We had no sooner finished the town garage than the Water and Sewer Board recommended to the selectmen that they award a contract to Phoenix Fabricators, I believe the name is, and no, it is not located in Arizona. It's located in Kentucky, and I believe also some other place in the Midwest, Ohio or Indiana, where they actually have a lot of their operations. But I believe they're based in Kentucky. I understand there are about 3 or 4 companies nationwide that build these water towers, and they're one of them. That price came in a couple of $100,000 under the engineer's estimate, which is good, because they did run into a problem of removing contaminated soil from up there around the old water tower, and Why was the soil contaminated? Because they used to paint water towers with lead-based paint. So as the paint chipped over the years and fell on the ground, it contaminated the soil immediately around the tank. So they have had to remove probably 18 inches to 2 feet of soil around the tank and take it to approved landfills. So they managed to get the cost of that down. I think we appropriated $6 million to do the water mains along Hospital Road and the water tower, and there's also connecting mains out to Longmeadow, I believe it is, Longmeadow Evergreen. And that should be all done within the $6 million appropriation. Hopefully that also will come in under, but we'll see. We are providing conduits in the tower to provide space for cable companies that might want to, or cell tower companies that might want to locate on the tower. As you know, we get probably, I think it's around $120,000 a year in rental income from the space we rent on the Mount Nebo water tower, and hopefully we'll get somewhat similar amounts from renting space on top of this tower. So, but that should take about a year, I believe, from the date of signing of the contract. They have 360 days to build the new tower and to remove the old one and to get it up and running. The water mains is almost complete. They finally did get permission from CSX to on the methods to go under the railroad track on Hospital Road.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, they haven't. I understand they haven't started it yet, but they should be starting it shortly. And then the location of the easement to get it from Hospital Road to the site of the new water tower, that's been fixed now, so they should be able to finish that link, and that will be done. So the water main section along Hospital Road, once they complete it on the railroad tracks and test it and sterilize it and whatnot, they should be able to put that in service, which should increase the pressure in the system and improve the circulation.
Now that that's been approved, how about the situation relative to the cable, the situation existing with the tracks? And I know that there has been many problems relative to the trains going by and the traffic, and then they get the gates down, but they can't get them back up again. And
right. Well, I was talking to Chief Meany about that yesterday, in fact, and he told me that he had gotten a email from Mass Department of Transportation contact, I believe it was, and he said that they had done some work, and it seems to have, at least so far, taken care of the problem. Now, he took me down a couple of weeks ago to show me the work they had done, and I said to him kiddingly, it looks sort of like a Rube Goldberg project. You know, it was, it looked like they had taken pieces of extension cord, cut them up, and hooked them around between the rails to bypass the smaller system they had connecting the rails. But so far, he said it's working. So sometimes you don't need the expensive solution. Sometimes the cheap solutions work better.
Well,
so
that's good. Well, I'm glad, because I was wondering as to whether or not that situation had been clarified.
Well, it's kind of a wait and see. We're hoping that solved the problem, but we'll have to wait and see. If it starts cropping up again, we'll know that it didn't work. But for now, it seems to be working fine.
So let's move back up on the hill to once again, the hospital, the state hospital. What's new?
Yes, the never-ending saga of the state hospital. Well, as we just talked about, the water tower construction should be starting within the next few weeks. Now, I think what they'll do initially is they'll try to get the foundation in before the cold weather sets in, and that will put them in good shape to begin work in the spring as soon as the weather breaks, which hopefully this year will be much earlier than last winter when we had all those brutal cold weather conditions. The transfer, people say, well, we own the land now, don't we? And no, we don't. We own the land where the water tower is going, but the rest of the land, the bill that the legislature passed and the governor signed authorized DCAM to convey the land to the town for $3.1 million, but it didn't actually do it. It gave DCAM the authority to do it. So the town has been meeting with the DCAM officials. In fact, they had a meeting yesterday, and we're still hashing out the details of the transfer. We're hoping to have it done by December 31st, because there is as you know, there's an election coming up quite soon. And in fact, it may be over by the time this program gets broadcast, but we'll have a new governor at the end of January. Was it January 4th or something, when they have the swearing in of the governor? So we'd like to have that done. We know the governor and the DCAM commissioners support this legislation and are in favor of it. And well, they say you never know what the next guy or gal is going to do.
With the next governor, can he put a no-no on it now that the governor has already signed and approved it?
Well, I think our legislators might have something to say about that.
But I would certainly think so. I hope so.
But I think we also need to come up with a satisfactory agreement on the terms of it. You know, there are a lot of issues ranging from access to a boat ramp, to easements, trail easements across the property, to the way the payments are going to be made was pretty well stated in the legislation. So I think that's pretty well accepted. But a lot of other conditions, you know, for example, on the Sledding Hill property, there's 12 acres of that can be used for active recreation or building, but the rest of it has to remain as protected agricultural lands. And so a lot of little details, you know, what they say, it's all in the details.
Very true.
And that's what they're working on right now. So.
Well, anyway, the situation right at the moment is still in limbo.
Still in limbo. And hopefully we'll start moving along very quickly, because it isn't very long until the new governor gets sworn into office, and that will be a new ball game, as they say, now that the World Series is over. So.
It is, yes, supposedly. Taxes,
yes. Well, it's that time of year. Presumably everybody has already paid their first two payments on the tax bill. Those are actually estimated bills. The assessors will set the tax rate. They have a classification hearing coming up. I believe it's around November 18th at the Selectmen's meeting. And that's to decide whether to have a single tax rate or a split tax rate. It's something you're required to do every year before the state will approve your tax rate. And we've never had a split tax rate. We don't have enough commercial industrial property to make sense. But you have to have the hearing anyway. All the other things are in place to go forward with the tax rate. And the tax rate, it won't be much different from the amounts that were set in the original estimated bills. The difference will be that we've had another interim reval. Property values are going up on average about 4%. So what really makes a difference is, did your property go up 4%, which is the average? Did it go up less than 4%, which you might see a slight savings on your tax bill, or did it go up more than 4%, which you might have to pay a little bit more on? And it can vary from neighborhood to neighborhood, from house to house. 1 year colonials are in, another year splits are in, or ranches are in. It just changes.
I understand, Mike. Now we were talking earlier, the water and sewer taxes are going out, aren't they?
The water and sewer bills, yeah, they go out. They'll go out this week, so they should get them probably first week in November. They should have their water and sewer bills. The total amount being billed is fairly high. It's for the first time, it's over $2 million. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was such a dry summer that people that are into keeping their lawns green probably had their sprinklers going a bit more than usual. So that'll be reflected in the billing. So we probably will have some surprises when they open their bills next week. But if they think about it and think about how dry it was,
It was a very dry summer.
Yes, yeah. So, but those will be going out. And the tax bills, usually they try to get them out the end of November, early December, even though they're not due to February 1st. There are some people that, for tax planning purposes, like to pay their bills by December 31st. So they try to get the bills out as early as they can to give those people the opportunity to pay by the end of the year. Where some people say, well, that's a nice Christmas present. You send the bills out in early December.
Yours when you move.
Yes, yes. But there are reasons why we do things the way they do. And it's, well, some people may be surprised at getting the bill right before the holiday season. Other people want them out that early so they can do their tax planning for federal tax planning purposes. So.
One other question that has been asked to me, town meetings, you're going to have two or just a special town meeting? And
two town meetings, hopefully one election. As I said, the Permanent Planning and Building Committee has asked the selectmen to have a special town meeting a week before the town election to deal just with the issue of the public safety bill, and they feel it's a major enough commitment that it should be handled at a special town meeting. And also the other advantage of doing it that way is if it's approved at the town meeting, there will be a ballot question on for the voters to determine whether they will approve an override to fund it. And of course, it will be contingent upon passage of that override. So if the override fails, the building will not be built, at least for the near term. But that way you avoid two elections. Some people don't like the idea of having to have two elections. So they're going to try to have the override question put on the annual election ballot. So you'd only have to vote once.
The override one.
Yes. And I'm sure Roberta and the Council on Aging will be happy only to have one election instead of two. So
very much so, I'm sure.
They have to deal with the one this month for the state election. So
a very important date is coming up, 11th day of November, Veterans Day.
That's right, yes. And thanks to Ron Griffin and the American Legion, they've really put together quite a nice program the last couple of years and really outreach to the veterans, young and old, living in Medfield, try to show the town's appreciation for all that they've done for us. And I think they had over 100 people last year at the breakfast. It's on Veterans Day is one of those holidays that occurs on the day, regardless of when it is. So it's November 11th, and there'll be a breakfast at the center at Medfield on Ice House Road, and they expect to have our senator representatives there. They are going to have Norfolk County's Veterans Advisor is going to be there to explain some of the implications of the new, I think it's called the Veterans Valor Act.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can explain how that's working or will work, depending on which phase of it's being implemented. And I don't know. I know last year Representative Kennedy came briefly and spoke to the crowd. Whether he'll be there or not, I don't know. But it's really quite a nice event, and I think it's a good thing that Ron Griffin and the Legion have put together to honor our veterans. Well-deserved honor.
They do.
And I think the attendance shows they really do appreciate it.
And I imagine that, are you going to be there in the kitchen?
I'll be one of the kitchen crew cooking up whatever they ask me to.
Well, I look forward to that, Mike.
Oh yeah, I do, as you know, I do the monthly breakfast for the Council on Aging, and I always look forward to that. I said, nice to have an hour out of the office, even if it is washing dishes and mixing pancake batter. It's a lot of fun.
Look forward to it, because I'm going to make it a point to be there.
Good.
As you may know, we had some news today. The Mayor Menino has passed.
Yes, it's too bad. He was only 71, and as I said, I used to think 71 was quite advanced. Now I think it's quite young. The nearer I get to it, I guess. Yes. But it's sad that he and his wife, who had, I'm sure there were many nights that she wished he would be home, spending time with the family, and he was out, going to events or fires or situations all over the city. So and he didn't really get to enjoy too much time after he stepped down. It's a shame he didn't have some years to enjoy his retirement.
He didn't. In one respect, I understand by what I had heard that he had canceled out his other treatments.
Yes, yeah. Well, he hasn't been. Seems to me he hasn't been well for several years now. I know he's had a series of medical incidents, and it's too bad. I suppose, though, if he were in good health, he probably would have run enough for another term. He seemed to thrive and love the job. So
he was a fine mayor.
Yeah,
I know.
They said he's the longest-serving mayor in the history of Boston. So
right.
I guess
he did a beautiful job.
He certainly turned that city around. It started with Kevin White. I think was the first one that really did a lot to bring about change in the city. But I think it certainly accelerated under Mayor Menino's tenure. So.
I know they're going to miss him.
Yes.
Mike, is there anything you'd like to add, talk about before we close?
Sure. I just wanted to wish the best to Kathy Leader, who's been the superintendent's secretary under, I think, the last 3 or 4 superintendents, and prior to that, I believe she was a secretary at the high school. So she's retiring at the end of October, and they had a very nice tribute to her at the high school cafeteria, and all of the former superintendents she served under came back. Tass Felides was there, the former high school principal. There were a lot of retired teachers and faculty members who came back, and it was really a very nice event. I think they caught her completely by surprise, so I'd like to wish Kathy well in her well-deserved retirement. Hope she makes the most of it.
Thank you, and once again, welcome back.
Thank you. I was going to say it's good to be back, but when I left Virginia, it was 79 degrees and sunny. So, although actually yesterday it was 72 here, so I can't complain too much.
And the old weatherman says now we're going to get into a cold spell.
Yes, and they're talking possibly snowflakes on Sunday or Monday. So,
we'll see what happens.
What do they say? Here we go again.
Here we go again. Once again, Mike, thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
This is Jack Peterson wishing you and yours the very best. Good night.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.